Hey everyone, this is Fabio and welcome back. Today it's time for a game discussion video on the latest game that I've beat a couple of minutes ago actually, but I already wanted to talk about it. I'm very excited to talk about it, and the game is none other than Castlevania Aria of Sorrow on the Game Boy Advance, as you can see. The third installment of the Castlevania series on the Game Boy Advance, and I'm very, as I said, happy to talk about this since I'm a huge Castlevania fan. It is one of my favorite franchises of all time. It is one of my most beloved series of all time, since I've been a Castlevania fan since the NES days, and I want to add, that is important for the sake of the review and my whole love for the Castlevania series. So, in Konami's view, and for critics, gamers alike, Aria of Sorrow is considered the first great portable Castlevania game. But of course it's not the first one, since, as we know, there's plenty of portable Castlevania games. Since the series became popular, Konami always tried to make also portable versions of this game. Started with the Game Boy. There are like the Castlevania Adventures, the Castlevania Legend, all of those, and there are others that I've probably forgotten, but of course I'm just talking about games that we had in the West, since there are plenty of obscure Castlevania games in Japan. Starting from the Game Boy Advance, Konami wanted to do something a bit not different, but also started to bring the portable Castlevania games to familiar direction, and that is to bring the Metroidvania style of Symphony of the Night into the portable games. And that is what the first Game Boy game on the Game Boy Advance meant, Circle of the Moon, tried to be. And that game is okay, actually. I haven't finished it because I got distracted playing something else. I played a big portion of the game and I liked it, even though it's kind of clunky in a way, but it's still like this big portable Metroidvania game, which, if you're a fan of that system, it's really cool. Then we have a big improvement for the most part with Castlevania Harmony of Dissonance. It's a great Castlevania game with a horrible sound chip, and that's unfortunate because for the most part Castlevania music is fantastic. But Harmony of Dissonance is a great Metroidvania, portable Metroidvania game. But I agree with the general idea that Aria of Sorrow perfected the portable Metroidvania concept that Konami was desperately looking for by this point, since of course after Symphony of the Night, that rightly so was a huge hit. That was the model that Konami wanted to apply for portable games as well, and it's interesting that they kept doing it while on the big consoles. The main Castlevania series, since it's a reboot as we know, like the Lord of Shadows games, went back to the 3D action adventure platforming. I haven't played those games since only recently I bought a PS3. I still need to play Lord of Shadows, even though I'm not in a huge hurry to get it, because I heard contrasting opinions, let's say that. Not that it's a bad game or anything, but from my point of view in the Castlevania series, we'll see. But of course, as I said, in the portable department, Konami, and mainly thanks to the leadership of Iga, we know Koji Igarashi, maintained the Metroidvania formula, and we had some of the best Castlevania games ever with the DS trilogy, let's call it that, even though the game are absolutely not connected with each other. But we have fantastic games like Aria of Sorrow sequel, Dawn of Sorrow. We had Bloodlines sequel, one of my favorite games actually, Bloodlines, I love that. Portal of Ruin, fantastic. And my personal favorites, DS game and Metroidvania game, Order of Ecclesia. I absolutely love this game. And I finished all of this, so I'm pretty proud of myself of having this phenomenal trilogy of games. Highly recommended, by the way. If you haven't got these games, get them now because they're among the best on the DS. But let's go back to Aria of Sorrow. All this big tangent on what the game was supposed to be, and it is actually. It's a good Metroidvania game. Just a big snippet of that. What Konami wanted, what actually was able to accomplish, and successfully accomplished, and how this game was followed by the other games in the series. The story of Aria of Sorrow, it's interesting, let's say that. I mean, I actually really like the Sorrow story, the Sorrow games. I'm a big fan of the character of Soma Cruz. And Aria of Sorrow, the first game in the series, in this mini-series, in a sort of side story, you can say, but in an interesting way. As I said, I really like this idea. Basically focuses on the character of Soma Cruz, as I said, a transfer student in Japan who... No, let's not go in that way. Who actually gets trapped into Dracula's castle during a solar eclipse. Because, as it is explained very early, it's not a spoiler, Dracula's castle was sealed into a solar eclipse during the 1999 Demon's Castle War, when Dracula was finally destroyed once and for all by the Belmonts. I never understood why Konami never made a game based on these events. That would be fantastic, because as we know, it would not be the end of the series, since we have the Sorrow games that takes place in 2035. So, I don't know. But, basically, Soma Cruz is trapped with his friend Mina something. She has a Japanese surname, I don't remember now. But she's very important, especially in Dawn of Sorrow, but she's a side characters like Soma's childhood friends. And other people are actually trapped into the castle. One of these is a very weird and creepy dude called Graham, I think, or something like that, who at first seems very friendly with Soma, but then all of a sudden go completely insane. I love the dialogues with this guy, because they're absolutely insane. Like, you are guilty of stealing the souls, you have to die. This kind of, with the really cool art, actually, because it's very nice. It's very different from Dawn of Sorrow, since Dawn of Sorrow took a more childish, in a way, anime approach than Aria of Sorrow. But yeah, I mean, so basically you have to find a way to escape the Dracula's castle. And I'm very proud to say that I managed to get all three, the ending of this game. The normal ending, the good end, the best ending, and the worst ending. And I have to say, it's really cool what happened. Let me say this, it's not a spoiler, but in order to get the additional ending, the best and the worst, you have to equip certain items before the final battle with Graham. That would trigger the game to continue, and you will be able to keep exploring the castle and find this extra area where you are supposed to go to meet your Soma's destiny or something like that. And if you die during the final battle, the final battle, you'll actually trigger the worst ending, which is really cool. I love that when it happens. But then, after a bit of grinding, like in this, it's normal in this Castlevania game, these Metroidvania games, I was able to beat the final boss and trigger the best ending. So overall, the story is completely crazy, but it's a Castlevania game. You don't play for the story. I mean, the overall story, it's always the same. Avoid Dracula's resurrection. That's it. That's what we should just say about a Castlevania game. And it's cool that technically you're not playing as a Belmont. You can unlock the Belmont mode with Julius after you beat the game the first time. And that it's cool because that it's more of a sort of hybrid between a traditional Castlevania with a Metroidvania. So you play in a sort of traditional way, so with Julius Belmont, but you don't level up. That's the interesting thing. You're just going around whipping your enemies. So I have to play that yet, but I want to focus on the main game before getting myself into the side game. But again, as I said, you don't level up, so it's much more difficult, since a common element in this Metroidvania is the leveling up system, the RPG elements. The music, like always, it's very good, like in most Castlevania games, with the exception of Harmony of Dissonance. There are some memorable themes in this that were reused in, I think, especially in Dawn of Sorrow, of course, but also in other Castlevania games, like the Castle Corridor, I think it's called. It's really nice, but my favorite, it's actually the theme that is playing during the battle between Soma and Julius. Wheel of Fire, something like that. That is really cool, actually. That's a really cool Castlevania music. So, like always, music is an important part of this game, but the main reason to play a Castlevania game, of course, it's a gameplay. As I said before, I started to play Castlevania when I got my hands on the first game on the NES. So, personally, I prefer the traditional side-scroll platformer. So, not the Metroidvania style. I love the Metroidvania games, since that has been the main staple of the series since Symphony of the Night. But the traditional side-scroll, 2D side-scroll platformer gameplay of the old Castlevania games, it's the best for me. It's the best way to play these games. But as I said, naturally, I enjoy the Metroidvanias. I played so many of them, as you saw, and I greatly enjoyed it. Of course, the thing is, this game takes place inside Dracula's castle, which is massive. You have to explore it, find save points, some sort of teleportation points. It is, of course, because of the name, it's kind of like a Metroid game, but we all know that. And while I really enjoy this system, my preference is still, and probably always will be, with the old gameplay, because I grew up with those. That's how I experienced the series for the first time and keep playing for a long time before all of a sudden they change it and introduce this exploration, backtracking. It's a huge part. You constantly have to go around the castle and explore rooms that you have maybe couldn't explore because you need a certain ability. You need, in this game, an important part of the Sorrow games is the fact that Soma is actually able to absorb the souls of the enemies that he defeats. Like, you cannot make a certain jump, you need to have the soul of the giant bat in order to fly. You cannot proceed in a room because time stops, so you have to find a soul that allows you to unlock the time-stopping ability of certain enemies, or stuff like that. Backtracking, of course, it's an essential part of the Metroidvania gameplay, together with the RPG elements. And that, although I love that, I love like the ability of leveling up, changing skills and stats according to your items. But the thing is, one of the reasons why I prefer the old school like platforming and side-scrolling games of the old Castlevania games is the fact that these elements are not in the games. You do not level up. You do not rely on tricks to beat a Castlevania game. That's how it should be. You rely only and exclusively on your skills and your ability with the whip. That's how I grew up. That's how I was taught to play a Castlevania game. Of course, it's just my personal preference, and I cannot say enough how much I love and enjoy this Metroidvania game, of course. As I said, it's just a preference. But if I have to make a list of my favorite Castlevania games, I will not surprise that all my favorites will be like the old games, like Super Castlevania 4, Rondo of Blood, Castlevania Bloodlines. I was about to say in the European title, like Next Generation or some Generations, and all of those. Although I love the Metroidvanias. They're a lot of fun, they're very hard, like a Castlevania should be. Like, let's talk about difficulty. I mean, Aria of Sorrow was challenging, I died a lot, but, like, for example, it will never be as hard as the first Castlevania. That game it's really, really hard. It'll just stomp you constantly and painfully. While Aria of Sorrow, like all the Metroidvania game, you just need to level up. Like, you grind some levels, you're much stronger, you can take on the challenges. Even though I like that, I just did for beat the final boss. I level up like 6 levels or something like that. I grind 6 levels. I don't know. I mean, it's weird. I'm not complaining or anything because I don't want to repeat myself too much. But I like this system. And as I say, I just prefer the old ones. It's just feel more. The sense of accomplishment is greater in my opinion. Like when I beat the first Castlevania, I was over the moon. When I beat Aria of Sorrow, I was like that was great because I always wanted to play and beat this game. But it was not as the satisfaction was not as great as when I beat the first Castlevania, or when I beat Dracula's Curse, or when I beat Super Castlevania 4. I mean, that's different, because those games are so much harder. But apart from that, Aria of Sorrow is a fantastic Castlevania game. An absolute must in your collection if you are a fan of the series. Of I was thinking I'm forgetting something. Probably, but it doesn't matter. The important things were said. As I said, of course, this is a huge recommendation, but I believe that if you are a Castlevania fan, you probably already played this. I was just unlucky because I kept finding like expensive copies of this game, but the moment I saw it for cheap, I snagged it immediately, so I could finally play and able to say that I beat also Aria of Sorrow, like the big Castlevania game that I missed. So I believe that's it. I don't know what else I could add to Aria of Sorrow, since honestly, one thing that surprised me, it was quite short. Like, I remember Dawn of Sorrow took forever to beat, because it's really long, but Aria of Sorrow was, I think I'd done it in like 7 hours or something like that, which it's okay as a time, of course, it shouldn't be like 70 hours. It's not a RPG or something like that, but I was expecting something more in terms of length. But of course, as I was saying, there's plenty of replayability, naturally, because after you finish for the first time, you have to keep playing in order to understand and unlock the best or the worst ending. Of course, there's Julius mode, so it also has plenty of replayability. And I think the Julius mod will be very hard, actually, because you will not level up. It's more challenging. So I'm very interested in that. So that's it for my discussion on Aria of Sorrow. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks much for watching. I'll see you next time.